Welcome. I'm Reverend Muata Rasuli, the Senior Minister at the San Francisco Center for Spiritual Living. This is Dr. Charlotte, and she hails from was Baltimore?
Alexandria, Virginia,
Oh, Alexandria, Virginia.
right
Pardon
outside
me.
of DC.
Absolutely. And this is your Black History Moment. I'm introducing Dr. Charlotte from Alexandria, Virginia. She has for us a very unique Black history memory.
And thank you so much, Reverend Sumi. It is a pleasure to be with you. But I also want to thank Robert,
Yes,
Reverend B, for for being able to share these moments. So much of our history right now, we're under fire with critical race theory and that kind of thing. And we both know that our history's not been taught in schools anyway, that the majority of the history that we've
that's right.
experienced as African Americans, or as I prefer, we are Americans of African descent. So I think that there are many stories, and as I have shared with Reverend Robert, so many of those stories are memories for me. They're not history for me. So I was
Yes,
sharing a story with him, and I wanted to share. And for those of you that don't know about the Green Book, the Green Book was it is called Guide for Travel and Vacations, the Negro Travelers, and this is called the Green Book. And there was a movie done a few years ago called The Green Book. And I can never pronounce his first name, but his last name is Ali, and he was the gentleman that played in Moonlight, and that has a lot of other movies. But he introduced the Green Book, I think, to a lot of American culture because most people didn't know about it. And the Green Book was a guide for the Black traveler. And you, Reverend, coming from California, as you came across country, in the late 50s, I mean the late 40s, early 50s, you couldn't stay in hotels going across this country. So you had to know where to stop, you had to know where you could stay, you had to know where you could get food, where you could get gas, because if you ended up in the wrong town, in the wrong place, talking to the wrong people, you could
right.
end up swinging from a rope. And we know
You
that
couldn't
Billie
stop on the side of
Holiday.
the road either.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And Billie Holiday sang the song "Strange Fruit," and
Strange
that
fruit.
was such an ideal explanation of what happened to Black people as they traveled across the South. So, as you said, I was born and raised. I was born actually in Washington D.C., but I was raised in Alexandria, Virginia. Born in 1951, when there were only segregation was from colored and white bathrooms, colored and white water fountains. This is in Alexandria, Virginia, 4 miles from the District of Columbia. So I remember when my brother and I were probably about 6 and 8 years old, we had wanted to go on a train ride.
Right.
And my grandparents, we didn't know at the time, but it was segregated. You could not ride on the train with white people. But my grandparents wanted to give my brother and I this experience.
Yes.
So they told us that we were going to take the train from Alexandria to Richmond, Virginia, which was about a 2.5 hour ride on the train.
Yes.
But we got to the train station in Alexandria, and we were directed by a Black porter to the very last train. And when we got on this train, there were no lights, there was no heat, there were no services whatsoever on this train. And I kept trying to figure out. My grandfather was in his Chesterfield coat and his fedora hat, and my grandmother was wearing her bootneck suit and her mink stole. And I mean, my brother and I were in my red velvet coat, my red coat with the black velvet collar. You know the look we had back in that day. And so, we came from, privilege, for lack of a better word, but not by white people standards. So
Yes.
I remember laying on my grandmother's lap, and this is as vivid for me as it was yesterday. I
Hmm.
was laying on my grandmother's lap, and I could see down in front of me other cars, and I saw white people with lights, and they were standing in the aisles, and they were laughing and talking and very jovial and all of this. And I turned to my grandmother and I said, why can't we go up there with those people? Because I didn't know. as a young child. I
Yeah,
didn't know.
absolutely.
And my grandmother said, "Well, we were a little late getting to the train station, so there are no seats available up there. So to prevent us from having this um, moment of humiliation,
Yeah.
my grandparents had subjected themselves to give my brother and I this ride on the train. It was my first visual experience of segregation in the South.
And she was protecting your innocence as well.
She's protecting us, yeah. But I remember that, and I write about that in my first book, which was The Four Ingredients to Spiritual Peace, which was about forgiveness, faith, gratitude, and love. And my grandparents, I never forget the first time I went with my grandmother and grandfather to vote for the very first time. My grandparents wanted us to experience. This was Eisenhower. This is
Okay.
when their first vote was with Eisenhower. And they wanted us to see that voting was a privilege, that our ancestors had fought and died for
Right.
us to have this privilege. So I am so grateful to be able to share these Black history memories and experiences with these young people who really and truly need to know and understand that they stand on the shoulders of
Yes.
incredible giants.
Indeed. Indeed.
And I'm sure we're in that same generation. And I'm sure that had it not been for the Green Book, and the Green Book is all about Black businesses and banking institution and hairdressers and restaurants and what they call tourist homes back in those days, and motels, hotels, all of that, thriving Black businesses from California
Yes.
on down the coast to Florida. So I'm sure you've got plenty of
What
stories
we
as
lost
well.
with integrate when with integration, all that we lost is in that book.
I have often said that integration was the worst thing to happen to Black people from an economic standpoint, because
Absolutely.
we were given the privilege to sit at the counter, but we were not given the privilege, and still have not been given the privilege equally, to own the counter. So I know what my parents sacrificed, and I know the things that we go through, and these stories, with this generation that we have. I mean, we are the Moses generation now. And these Joshuas really need to know and understand the sacrifices that were made so that they have the freedoms that they experience right now, the limited freedoms that they experience now. So, Black memory is very, very important to me, as
Indeed.
well as Black history.
Absolutely. I would agree. And I shared earlier that we had an experience, my dad's military and I, in stay in the Northwest. And crossing country, we used the green, we agreed that we used that book, The Green Mile. And the
Yeah,
one time we tried to stop somewhere without it, they turned us away. And I
yeah,
remember being confused, Daddy, why can't we stay here? It says vacancy. Well,
yep,
son, it says vacancy, but they didn't really have any vacancies for us.
right.
And we moved on.
Yeah.
We moved on.
And we didn't get it. I mean, we didn't understand it because, as children, we thought we were equal.
Yeah.
We knew that there were places that we couldn't go and things. I mean, I lived across the street from white people and I couldn't walk on that side of the street. But,
Mm,
it was like I didn't get it because we were sheltered from that.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And our parents let us know in no uncertain terms. We were having the talk way back then, too. So it wasn't just this generation of Black kids that are having the talk. We were getting the talk back in that day. You don't look no white man in the eye. You don't raise your voice. None of that kind of stuff back in those days. So it is,
Mm,
in some instances it's like we are reverting back, but in so many way we are accentuating what happened to us back in the 40s and 50s, so as not to repeat this again.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, you have to know who you are, so you aren't defined by other people, and
yeah,
that's what this month's about, and that's what these talks have been about. And
yeah,
I'm really appreciate. I like your take that Black history is one thing, but we also have Black memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like your take on Americans of African descent. That works really, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And because we're Charlize Theron is an African American. She's a white woman from South Africa who is now, an American citizen. We are not. We are American citizens of African descent. And that's a big difference.
It is
Big
a
difference.
big difference, especially the president of our organization, Edward Viljoen. When he
Yeah.
first came to the States, at least when he first came to Northern California, and he was meeting with the Northern ministers, and there's a lot of African Americans in there. And he
Yeah.
said, as far as he's concerned, he was the only African American in the room.
That's
It
right.
didn't
From
fly very well, but
Exactly.
what could we say? But what could we
That's
say?
that's right. That's true. That's true. But there's so much for us to learn from each other. And God knows we need peace on this planet right now. And so,
Indeed.
as you pray us out of here,
Yes.
I just ask that we not just ask for let there be peace for us as human beings, but peace for the planet as well, so that we can heal this planet and return to the love that God is. So,
Thank you.
yes.
And how wonderful it is to have this opportunity to once again go into the stillness and sip the nectar of silence. To
Mm.
recognize once again that there's one life, one mind, one power, one presence, one eternal giving nature, and it is the life, the mind, the power, the presence, the eternal giving nature of God, the good, the indwelling and self existent one that lives and breathes and has his being in and through and has all of creation in and through and has me in and through his all circumstances, all situations, all memories, and all anticipations. God simply is. And the peace that we seek is the peace of the divine that already rests and abides in and through and as each of us. And so we do not seek it as much as we reveal it in this moment. In this moment, we do not fade. In this moment, we do not shrink. In this moment, we do not walk away. We do not turn away. We stride forward and boldly allowing the peace of God to resonate through us in such a fashion that it is contagious to all who even hears of us. We allow the blessings of the Holy Spirit to catch the vibrational frequency of humanity and affect it from the inside out. We know the peace is here because we are at peace with all beings, all circumstances, and all situations. And we constantly and continually work on that peace individually and collectively every day. And peace is revealed, peace is realized because peace is what I am. For this truth, I'm grateful. For this understanding, I am humbled and I release and I let go, knowing that it is so right here and right now. And so it is.
And so it is. It was such a pleasure to meet you, my brother. Again, thank you, Reverend Robert, for allowing us to do this. We're going to talk about some women's history next month, too.
Oh, aren't we though?
We have
Oh,
to get,
I can't wait, aren't we though?
yes, indeed. March is Women's History Month. So we
You
got a
know,
bunch
woman
of
birthed me.
sheroes. Yeah. We got a bunch of sheroes that we're going to be talking about next
Indeed.
month. God
Indeed.
bless you, Reverend
God
Sumi.
bless you.
It is a pleasure
Indeed.
to meet you, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Indeed. Until next time,
Peace and
God
power.
bless us, everyone.
Yeah.
Peace.